What's up, everyone? I'm Lex Leosis. I'm an MC from Toronto, Canada, and you are listening to Dusty Oregon.
That's me, Kane from Dusty Oregon. Welcome to the From the Inbox, a podcast. I've got Lex Leosis on the show today. She's putting out a new EP this summer, and more, I guess, immediate, she just released a new single called Wanted off of that EP. And Lex's music, if you guys aren't familiar with it yet, it's freaking, I've seen multiple people talking about it this way, just powerful, punchy, and just so, it just hits so hard. She's this awesome MC from Toronto. And this new single, Wanted, I'm just going to jump right into it, is really cool because it's all about, empowering yourself, being confident in what you want to say. Definitely. And just kind of share your words about, what the single is to you.
Yeah, Wanted is, we were all stuck in this pandemic, and I think like everyone, I was watching hella movies, and I was watching like a lot of oldies like Thelma and Louise and Heat and like Ocean's 11 and like heist films and stuff. And I remember when I first was sifting through production that I had, and I heard that guitar, I was like, oh, this sounds like a Thelma and Louise type like funk record. And I grew up on funk. So I was really stoked to be able to incorporate that in this EP. So yeah, Wanted was like this kind of the opposite of where I was feeling in the pandemic, which is like, I'm stuck at home, I'm not playing shows. And like, it was like this track that allowed me to kind of just be outside of that zone in my life and just like really go for it. Powerful energy, feeling like I'm on the road, got the like heist Thelma and Louise style going on. So yeah, it was kind of like a vision almost,
Yeah, that's fun. And like the rest of the EP too, I got to take a listen to it as well. And speaking of like the higher energy and just being the opposite of what the past, year and a half has been like, is what's really cool about your style is it's very approachable with like the pop side of it. And you also dig really deep into the old school hip hop world of just pure lyricism, which I think is what really captures people's attention nowadays too, is when somebody has like a fantastic flow and you're like, it just grabs your attention.
Yes.
And has that always been a goal of yours, is to be an MC and, be so strongly worded like that?
Yeah, I had a really interesting start into music. I actually started off through spoken word. So everything with spoken word is about the words, and there's no backtrack helping you along. And like, you have to decide the flow, and it can change. And there's really no like borders or rules, and everybody's just listening and hanging on to every single word you say. So it's a good jumping off point because it just really taught me that I had to be nice with my pen. And then as I started, I've been rapping now for 11 years. And as I started rhyming, that just kept with me. It was like, yeah, I like all these other artists who were rapping really quickly, but they weren't really saying anything, when it was never really interesting to me. So I want to be able to combine both, like have that capturing flow, but also like have lyrics that people can hold on to.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, especially with the way that a lot of more modern hip hop artists are, is they're very focused on, how they sound and not so much what they're saying. And it's nice to, have that refreshing combination of both, where you're saying something and people still want to listen to what you're saying too, which is cool.
Yeah. And I think all the greats have that in common, is like, I think anyone who I hang out with, including myself, like we're all aiming to be a master of our craft. And that's part of it, is like having all the dynamics of being a great MC covered. So it's like flow, lyricism, a great live show. You could play instruments, you're grasping onto production and music theory. Like that is all part of doing this forever,
Yeah, I feel like some people just make it look so easy, but it's really so much more complex like that, which is awesome. And for yourself, especially, like you really got your footing in the Canadian music scene as part of the hip hop group, the Sorority. And I know it's been a few years since you guys were together, but I guess people don't know, like, who were the Sorority?
Yeah, so the Sorority kicked off with it's an all-female rap group, kicked off with this International Women's Day Cypher in 2016, I think. don't quote me on the date. I can't, the years have been passing with the pandemic like crazy, and now I don't know where we're at anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been about 5 or 6 years since we've been together. And yeah, we toured all across Canada. The Cypher like jumped off at the beginning, and we decided to make an album. And then we were opening up for like Wu-Tang and Snoop Dogg and
Wow.
yeah, Majid Jordan and Division. And it was like really crazy experience. And I think for all of us, just like made us level up, because when you are rapping with other elite MCs, like you don't want to be the weakest link. You have to always bring that energy and bring every single thing to the table. So I think for all of us, it was like a rap boot camp for 2 or 3 years, you know?
How did you guys come together then for that Cypher? Because I know I remember listening somewhere that you guys had just pretty much met that first time at that
Yeah. It was put together by this group called 40 Ounce Heroes and Team Backpack. It was basically like when the Cypher era was happening, and they would just bring like, this one was specifically all females, and then they had another one with like male MCs that they did a Cypher with. So they just like, it was kind of whoever was on the production team was like, oh, I've heard of this woman, and I've heard of this woman, and I heard of, and they just like, we all got randomly invited by knowing someone in the production camp.
Oh,
and
cool.
We all had kind of been making our waves in one way or another in the city already.
Yeah. That's so serendipitous that you guys kind of all flowed together for that thing, and then it just ignited this storm.
Yeah,
because you guys were doing pretty well in terms of Canadian music scene, where the people, Exclaim was picking you guys up, touring around Canada, festivals and stuff like that. So, and very deservingly so. And what's cool as well is, I think you guys pretty much, well, I don't want to say split up, but went your separate ways, because you're all working on very interesting solo projects, yourself included, and Kesha Fresh, Havaya Mighty, of course, with their wonderful albums and stuff.
Yeah, it's been crazy. We made the decision to part ways just based on the fact that we were all already working on all of this solo stuff while we were doing the group, and then it just didn't feel like it would be sustainable to do both. Like for all of us, like we had to start being like, oh, well, like I have this show, but we have this show as the group, and I have this show solo. So like, then you're letting down the group because 2 other people are expecting to do the show, and then you can't because you have a solo show. And it just started to be like, oh, schedule wise, this is going to be really, really hard. And we just decided to leave it on a good note, instead of it like crumbling and failing under this like new schedule permutation thing.
Yeah. It's like that saying, nothing good happens after 2 a.m. Leave a party.
That's it. Yeah. That's it.
That's
leave
awesome.
it while things are good.
And do you find that, how has that experience with the sorority kind of helped you really pursue your solo career further now?
Yeah, like I said, it was like definitely more of a boot camp. It taught me different things. Like I think we all really brought something different to the table, and that's why the group was so unique and interesting, is because we all rap differently, but we also had different strengths and weaknesses. So we were able to really learn from each other. But I think the main thing was just now having, because Havaya and Keisha and I are still really good friends, and like just having 2 other women in this industry that I'm close with and I can like share experiences with, has done a lot for like personally for my confidence, and just like having people that are sharing a similar industry with you and being able to talk to people and like, passing off a track and being like, yo, what do you think of this? How does this sound? And like just having those people as like really good friends has been great. And then also it gave us all some notoriety, like people were checking for us all of a sudden with the sorority. Like we all had a little kind of buzz in our own way. Like I was really doing my thing online, like YouTube. I had a little state following. Keisha spent a lot of time in New York, so she was like really respected by a lot of like the old hip hop heads and like the legends, and she kind of knew that whole industry. And Havaya had like Brampton and Toronto buzzing about her. So we all had these different things, but then like the sorority just elevated us to this like national platform really quickly.
Yeah, it's just like synergy. You guys all come together. Yeah, which is really great about, I almost want to say like super groups in a sense, where you just compile your skills together and boom.
Right.
And going back to your point of like having, other women to collaborate with and, share experiences with and stuff, I'm genuinely curious, has over the years, especially, between the sorority and now, how is your experience as a woman in the Canadian hip hop scene been overall? Like, have you noticed any progress, and has there been a lot of, obstacles obviously to kind of jump through and stuff? Or
Yeah, I mean, I feel like women in every industry, because like every industry is a product of the larger society we live in, right? So all of those problems that exist in Canada exist in those structures as well. And the music industry, like being a particularly hard one, very racist, very sexist, very controlled by a small group of people, especially in Canada. So yeah, like there's all types of different things. They're creepy men that are like trying to work with you, and you can't do that because they're creepy and you don't feel safe. And then there's just everyday things like safety, getting to and from shows, turning down offers because the person's insinuating that there's strings attached, and it gets really weird and hard, and any woman that's listening to this will relate to that in their own industry as well. Like it's not just the music industry, right? But yeah, I think it's getting better in the sense that there's representation, and I think that's like a large part in changing any structure, is having representations and voices at the forefront. And I've seen lately, and we've all existed, and like all the women that are coming up now I've been around and rapped with for years in Toronto especially. So it's like now they're just getting light from all the DSPs, from Spotify and Apple, and they're being on billboards, and that's part of growing as artists, but also that like people are starting to pay attention to women now as MCs. And historically in hip hop culture, women have always been here and have always been leaving their mark and their voice on every stage. But now I feel like, yeah, there is some attention shifting and money being put into us, and that feels great. But there's a lot of work to do,
Yeah, of course. There's definitely still like, it's still very, heavily, as you said, like creepy male dominated industry, like it's a very unfortunate truth with the music world. But it is comforting to see that there are, larger parties putting effort and money and time into, balancing everything out, which is great. And you're doing your own part too, especially, as a native Torontonian, you're very active in the community and like programs and classes and stuff. And so kind of like, what else do you do in terms of like the community around Toronto?
Yeah. Well, the big thing that I've been running for years is called MC Rec Shop. It's a program to train young MCs. That's actually a program that started in Hamilton through Hamilton Youth Poets. And so I've been doing that for 6 years, been running the program, wrote the curriculum for it. We do everything from hip hop history all the way to live performance for anyone, all different skill levels. It doesn't mean if you've never written a day in your life and you want to be an MC, you can come to class.
That's
if
so
you've
fun.
already been doing it for 5 years, we put everyone together and we all learn together. And that's also something that I've tried to share with my students along the way, is that like this is always a process and you're always learning. And so I'm right there writing verses with them and freestyling with them, and like I don't little homie them, for lack of better words, like I don't like when people do that. It's just like, these are MCs that are, if they put in the work, will be just as good as you, if not better someday. So like, here you are with them and you're their peer, not necessarily always their mentor or their teacher. So I've done a little bit of that. And I also am very involved in the cooking industry.
Oh, cool.
So I do a lot of volunteer work through giving food back to communities and people as well.
Oh, it's awesome. Yeah. I love that you're so true to your city, and you love giving back to Toronto as much as you can, which is great. And do you feel that, at the same time, has Toronto given you a lot to work with over the years?
Everything. Toronto is like, it's an obsession at this point. It's like there's a lot of things that need to happen and to be different. And I mean, Toronto people like to shit talk our own city, and I think we're the only ones that are allowed to do it. But like Toronto raised me, and like I went through the whole poetry scene. I'm still going through the rap scene here, the hip hop scene. I danced here when I was a kid, like all the different cultures. I grew up with just like a single mom, and she was at work all the time. So I had like all these different communities that were my family, and those people like are I call them brother and sister and uncle, and like even though we're not blood related, because like they mean the world to me, and Toronto like has truly raised me, and I will always give back here.
That's awesome. And on that note, like, how do you feel that the Toronto scene has influenced your music and your career as an artist in the city?
I think like Toronto's diversity in the music scene, like genre wise, is so vast. And I think Toronto has been really good. We have like the weekend sound that's like more melodic and like R&B, and then like we also have like more like battle rap, like King of the Dot stuff, and then there's like a really incredible R&B scene here. There's an incredible rock community. Just the diversity and how people are really experimental with how they shift things here. Like everyone I rap with is such a different rapper than I am. And so that's been really cool for like creativity. And that's why like on this new EP with Wanted, especially, like I was able to take like some rock influences and some funk influences and feel comfortable just putting that into my music, because everything here just feels like experimental and free. And I love that about Toronto.
That's awesome. Yeah. And, make even more about your upbringing here in Toronto and stuff too, is on this album, on this EP, I know that you really focused on bringing in acoustic instrumentation, like really like organically analog recording. And I understand that was actually heavily inspired by an old record collection from your late grandfather. Is that right?
Yeah, it was. My grandpa on my mom's side was like a huge jazz head, and he had this foresight to leave me all of his records. And he died when I was pretty young. So like my mom was saying, like, we have records for you. Like she kept saying that to me over the years. And I was like, okay, like just not expecting what it was. But I have really great memories with my gramps listening in his car, because sometimes he'd help out my mom and come pick us up or whatever. And he'd always have jazz on in the background. And so as I started to sift through these records finally, because now have my own place and I have the space to take 500 records, as I started sifting through that era of music, I'm like, oh man, like I want to learn instruments. So during the pandemic, I picked up the piano, and I'm like 6 weeks into the bass right now as well. And
oh, cool.
And just like really trying to contribute to my music in a new way, because I still work my pen every single day, and I will always continue to grow as an MC. But the ultimate goal is to be an all around insane musician. And I really do want to do this for the rest of my life. So I wanted to start to build that production and that music theory side of things as well.
That's awesome. And you're making a really cool effort to, as you're saying, working the pen every single day too. And you're doing you're making it almost into a fun activity with TikTok. Cause I saw that one of your TikToks went pretty viral, courtesy of the Arkells and K-Flay, their track, You Can Get It. And that was actually one of my more recent notices of you, was that thing. And I remember watching, I was like, holy crap, this is awesome. It's such speaking of, like the whole Toronto scene, like you get all these genres mixing together and stuff. And that's a perfect example. You get these pop rock icons like the Arkells and K-Flay, and then you just threw your own fun spin on it. And how have you been keeping up with, making sure to do it almost a regular basis on TikTok?
So it's kind of like been a known thing about me, just because I have been teaching it as a mentor, that I like write every day. That's just something, I just have this like whole discipline theory of like, if you do something every day, you'll be good at it. And I've never really been too scared to like fail or look bad at something. Like I will be on my Instagram story failing at piano in front of 7,000 people who know I'm good at rapping. And I'm like, but I suck at piano. So TikTok was like this thing. My little cousins had it. There's this new platform. Some of my friends who work in the music industry, not as musicians, are talking about the importance of being on TikTok and how the algorithm really supports indie artists. And so I'm like, I have to be on it. I'm already writing a verse every single day. I'm just not showing anyone. So like, why would I not be doing this? And then the pandemic hits and we can't tour anymore. So it's like, how are you supposed to get fans if you can't put yourself in front of new people every day? And then it was just like this perfect storm. So I started TikTok in March. I actually just hit 10,000 followers the other day.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
quick.
so yeah, it was really quick, and I had a couple viral ones. I had one that almost did 1 million, and then I had the other day I had one that did about 500,000. And just every
Ooh,
day there's like new
stretch it
people
out,
that
yeah.
are, yeah, like every day there's like new people that are discovering my music because of these like random freestyles. So there is this disciplined aspect. I was doing it every day at the beginning, and then that just felt like really hard. So
Yeah.
so I because I want to be writing my own music as well, right? I don't want to just be doing TikToks. So now I do about 3 to 5 a week. I usually spend like an hour or two a day just like freestyling over different ones, putting them in the drafts, and then putting up whatever one is like really fun.
That's so
Um,
cool.
yeah, but it's been this like really cool other community that I had no idea about. There's truly like this hip hop community on TikTok as well. So I've been like linking up with producers from like Atlanta and Texas, and just like starting to make actual music with people who I met through a TikTok.
That is so amazing to hear that. Especially,
Yeah.
American producers like Atlanta and Texas, like they have their own really rich hip hop sounds that are so
Mm-hmm.
fun. Have you always kind of admired those scenes, the southern
Yeah,
scenes?
I have like a old my ex lived in Texas and we dated for a long time. So I've been to Texas, and I've been there for like 3 to 5 years, like every summer. So I got used to the rap scene out there, and I've always been obsessed with like the southern sound of hip hop. It's so unique and like beautiful, and their voices and their tones, their vocal tones are like unmatched to me. You could listen to them for hours and hours. That deep southern tone is so amazing to listen to. And then Atlanta obviously is just a conglomerate for hits. Like just
Yeah.
all the hits come from Atlanta now, and the production scene out there is crazy too. So I do have a couple of friends from Atlanta that I work with regularly, and now with the production side of it coming in, it's just like I feel like I've never been, but I feel like as soon as this opens up, I'm going to Atlanta.
Yeah, you're already building a network there, so that's awesome.
That's it.
And I feel like you're really connected to the States too, because I was reading a lot, and a lot of spots were mentioning that you had like a Californian, uh, I guess, influence and
Yeah, I used to live
tie.
there.
Okay,
Yeah.
how long ago was that?
So I lived there. I lived in 2 6 month stints. So one in the Bay Area and one in LA. And I have like a couple best friends who are artists out there as well. And we've gone on tour out there lots together. So that's been really fun. And like just living in California, and like they also like the Bay Area has its own very unique, like incredible scene, and the energy in the Bay is just unmatched. Like I remember being there the first time, being at a Bay Area show and thinking this is so different from Toronto, because it's just all like love and energy, and everyone's like touching the stage and just so happy to be at a hip hop show. And it's truly like one of the best cities, like areas, regions in the world, the Bay Area. Like I love it there. And LA is weird in its own, but it does make you level up in a competitive way because everyone's in LA. So
Yeah.
it's like you could just be at a party with like 7 people who are phenomenal artists, and you have no idea. And then you're like, they're like, yeah, follow me on Instagram. And you're like, oh my God, you're like this incredible guitar player. I had no idea. I was hanging out with you all night. And so it's just really inspiring. LA is just like constant networking.
Yeah. That must get exhausting after a while too. And then, it's kind of refreshing, I'm
Definitely.
sure, to head back to Toronto, and you still have that nice network and, that competitiveness, but do you feel that it's almost more of a community here, or do you find that, your time in California, those people had more of a sense of community? Would you be able to compare them at all, or?
Yeah, I feel like Toronto is just unique in that once you're in, you're in. And it sometimes feels like really hard to be in, And I know like a lot of people have that like claim of Toronto, which is like, it's just small and it's like very gatekeeper-ish. And that's definitely a thing. And there's so many people behind the scenes that work in the industry that are trying to change that. And people who now have jobs at like TikTok and Spotify and Apple, and are like really trying to put all types of different Toronto artists on. So I feel like it's moving away from like being that gatekeeper kind of community. But Toronto's just different because you could go to a hip hop show, you could go to two in one night, and there would be completely different sounds and a completely different experience. And people are ciphering on the streets in Kensington. And like, you know, you just got like someone who's works at McDonald's that's like one of the best rappers that you've ever heard. And just like, I don't know, Toronto's just filled to the brim with talent. And the Bay Area is just, it's just all love and like chill there. Like it's very similar, but in different ways. I can't really put it into words, but if you can imagine that California is just like a warm hug, you know?
Yeah.
And Toronto feels like a little bit more hostile, but like once you're in the community, it's just, it's beautiful.
That's amazing. That's a good way to put it. I feel like you combine the two, that, you know, something amazing would happen even more so, but
yeah, exactly.
And, you know, speaking of love and stuff like that too, I guess I could bring it back to your new EP with Terracotta. That's predominantly why I brought you on here to talk about that. And yeah, like I said before, you know, it's about empowering and having the voice and the courage to say what you mean and express it. And how much did like a real relationship kind of go into influencing this record?
Yeah, there were a couple that that were
a couple. All right.
Yeah. So I'm bisexual and also poly. So the relationships on this album are not necessarily one person, but just made up. And I also take a long time to write projects. Like I usually keep things in the vault and then bring them back up, because I always say like I'm nervous to take up too much space as a musician, and then also as a white person in hip hop, and like always having the mic and the space. Like I need to contribute something meaningful, and the thing that I've been able to contribute is like myself and all on authenticity, you know? And so I have to live first to be able to make those songs. And so I'll make them and then I'll vault them, and then I'm like, oh, this is a great song and it needs to be brought back up. So I feel like Terracotta is probably, about 2 or 3 different relationships that I've pulled from different parts of my life over the last 2 or 3 years. And I just wanted it to be like really raw and honest, but shifting from my last EP, I wanted it to like feel like some summer nostalgic and a little bit lighter than my old stuff, not as like cyphery and like hard, but more just like you could run this on a loop all summer and it makes you feel good. You know, it's honest, but it's like, it's music you can jam to still.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Because you start to finish, it's just such a chill and fun album, and you get that sense that, you know, even though it is, you know, it is difficult to put yourself out there, especially with people that you really care about and stuff, but the sound of the record just feels so much, you know, easier and carefree, that it's a nice way of giving people that boost to be like, yeah, you know what, I'm going to tell somebody how I feel. And do you find that you often take your own advice, or do you
I wish, but I feel like I'm starting to now. I really wanted to create a project that was like all the songs that I wish I had said to people, like Won't Wait, the one that I already released, the first single off Terracotta, was literally a letter that I wanted to write to someone that I made into a song.
Oh, wow, okay.
which was like, I don't want you to waste my time. I want you in my life and I care about you. But you know, when you're in those moments, you don't always say those things eloquently or how you want them to be. Like you're just like, okay, do whatever you want. You know, sometimes it's just like, okay, like you're having this conversation and then you leave and you're like, I really wanted to say ABC, but I didn't say any of those things. So I've been doing this thing where I write stuff down, like before I have a conversation with people, and some of those things have turned into songs. But now I'm trying to like be a little bit more confident and allow people to just come and go as long as they respect me and love me, and I can give my love and respect to them back. But like when it's time for someone to leave my life, I'm not going to try and hold on to them, you know, just let things go.
That's so eloquently put. Really. And it actually, that reminds me so much of, you know, the comments before about watching a lot of movies and stuff, because that is such a movie thing, is that they have these perfectly scripted answers to these moments of like, you know, it's really is like a very adrenaline pumping sort of situation when you're having these tough conversations, at least, you know, personally. And
Yeah.
yeah, you always wish you had thought of this. It comes to you at 3 o'clock in the morning or when you're showering or something. And yeah,
Yeah.
that's not real. So I feel like, do you feel like you were able to kind of combine those two on this record where you had that preparation period, but you also were able to kind of bring in the raw truth to it?
Yeah, I thought the like really coolest part about making this specific EP. So my roommate, her best friend is the executive producer of Terra Cotta. So we met through my roommate,
Nice.
and he was around during the pandemic because he was like practically here all the time. And so we were making music, and it just felt like comfortable to be making music with somebody that you know so well. And that left a lot of room for like organic things to happen in the album making process. And I think that's what brought a lot of truth into the statements, because like you said, in like a movie script, everything's perfectly written, and in a song it's also can be perfectly written. You're like, no, I'd never say that, or like, I'm gonna say it this way. And like, when you're in the booth and someone's watching you do that knows you really well, they can call you on things like, you would never say that, or like, you didn't say that the way you might have said that harsher than you just said it there, you know? So there was a lot of switching and like last minute changes that led to this being like such a dense, like authentic version of myself. And I'm really proud of it. Usually I get really nervous putting out projects because by the time they're coming out to the public, I'm already like over them and then the new spot. But this still feels like every song on there just like rings true, and it feels like who I am as a person still.
Well, we'll see what the rest of the world has to say once it comes out.
That's true.
Yeah, well, that's so important that, you know, you're able to have somebody holding you accountable, you know, for what you're saying and, you know, what you're putting out into the world. And yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, and I know the music video for Wanted comes out as well the same day, or came out the same day. I always do this. I always pretend like I'm recording this the week of. Everyone knows, Kane. This is
we can just let it go, Kane. It's a week early. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a week early right now. I'm pretending that I'm recording it ahead of time. But yeah, and it's such a fun visual. I saw a clip of it where, you know, like you're saying, it's a mix of Thelma and Louise and Heat and all that fun troublemaking type of music and visuals. So
one for a hot girl summer, hopefully, Kane. We're gonna, everybody's outside now, and it's hopefully gonna be a fun one.
Yeah. What's that lyric? Poster child.
I want to poster child.
Yeah, that's it.
You want this.
I love that. I want it, baby. You want this.
Exactly. Just that sheer confidence that you feel sometimes when you're just like, nah, like you could go because I'm wanted, you know? That should be that hopefully will be the anthem for the hot girl, hot boy, hot non-binary summer is let's go.
You want this.
I'm here for it.
Cool. Yeah. So don't forget, guys, check it out. Wanted, Lex Leosis, her new album, Terracotta. The EP's out July 9th. And more importantly, follow her on TikTok, because there was one, I forgot to bring this up before. She literally raps over a guy cooking.
Oh, yeah.
And it is awesome. It's one of my favorites. It is so cool. I was like, oh, what?
Yeah, that was a fun one. I just start to get weird on TikTok because there's not as many beats that I like, and now that I've rapped over so many of them, and I'm like, okay, I'll just rap over some guy chopping stuff, you know?
And it worked.
It worked
well. I don't know what else to say, man.
This is so
like,
creative shit.
Cool. And that's the beauty of TikTok.
That's it.
And you can just be found at what, Lex Leosis?
On everything: Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Leo like lion, sis like sister. Leosis.
I like that. Leo like lion, S like sister.
Yes.
All right. Thanks so much, Lex. Thanks for joining me on the show this week.
Thank you so much for having me, Kane.
Drop top of a four Thunderbird, zip lock, never say a word, and we